Ullrich, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hey, Aaron, how are you doing?
I'm fine. You are handsome as always. How you managed
Thanks.
to look so young, even though you are 55?
I'm 45. Don't overdo it.
I know.
Yeah, I don't know. Might be the regular visits to Turkey. I don't know. Maybe because of that.
So, Ulrich, once again, thank you very much for being with us. And when I ask you if you can be with us, you tell me that let's do an interview this time because you made all your presentations. So I prepared some questions for you. Are you ready for my difficult questions?
Yes. I try my best.
Thank you very much, Ulrich, once again for being with us. So my first question, Ulrich, what did metasearch did during this period? I mean, this is the thing that I wonder because as we all know, metasearch suddenly to us became popular in the last 3-4 years. And most of hoteliers and consumers still don't exactly know what metasearch is. They think that the metasearch are like OTAs, but just they became popular. So during this period, how does metasearch help hotels to market themselves?
Well, but coming from the first question, what did happen to metasearch in the last, let's say, 18 months? Well, I think there are two things that we need to look at. Number one is that I mean, metasearch is still very much focused, and let's say metasearch precisely meaning TripAdvisor, Trivago, and Google Hotel Ads, which are the three big ones. And all three products are still very much about, or stronger, let's say, in city search, right? So if you are in Istanbul, I think it's more relevant for you than if you're somewhere in Antalya, even though, of course, all platforms have traffic and demand for all hotels, but still there's a stronger influence on typical city hotels. Why? Because it's more for, let's say, 2-3 nights, price-sensitive travel, right? And not so much of complex holiday travel where people stay for 2 weeks, maybe have a package holiday and things like that. Metasearch is not so relevant, obviously. So looking at the travel demand over the last 12 months, specifically when you look at all the different lockdown scenarios, obviously city travel was much more affected than leisure travel. Leisure travel occasionally popped up, right? And several leisure areas were able to open up. And then obviously demand was driving into those leisure destinations, while cities were pretty much low for the whole time. And that also meant that obviously demand and traffic via metasearch really went down. We saw on our side in the past, when we had a normal hotel, we had around, let's say, 30-40% of the traffic of the advertising paid traffic came in through Google AdWords, so the regular keyword advertising, and around 70% came through metasearch. And this literally turned around. So we literally are now at 70-80% of the traffic coming through Google AdWords, so the classical keyword search, and only 20-30% through metasearch. And that also had to do with more traffic coming on leisure hotels and less traffic coming on city hotels. So clearly metasearch, specifically platforms like Trivago, but also Google Hotel Ads was actually not as strong and bouncing back as Google AdWords. On the other side, what we can also see, and that has been a trend even before Corona, is that Google is obviously catching up on traffic compared to Trivago and TripAdvisor. So Google is really building a strong product around metasearch. Google Hotel Ads is taking more and more market share. And that means
the exact share at the moment, Ulrich? Do you have the numbers in mind? I mean, how is the share between Trivago, TripAdvisor, and Google Hotel Ads?
Oh, that's a very tricky answer because obviously it really depends where your hotel is located, right? So if you're a city hotel in Germany, it's completely different than if you are a leisure hotel in Mexico, right? If you're a leisure hotel in Mexico, your share on TripAdvisor might be 70%, while in Germany, as a city hotel, TripAdvisor is only 5%. So it really depends on country, location, what kind of hotel. I would always say that in Europe, let's stay in Europe, and this is where our database is. Our typical share, as like I said, we always see it in combination with the keyword advertising. So if you have 100% of paid traffic, we said 35% was keyword advertising, which is in that area predominantly Google. So of those 35%, around 90% is Google and 10% is Bing. And then on the meta search, it was always the other 70%. And those 70%, you could always say it was roughly 30% Google, 30% Trivago, and 10% TripAdvisor. And all the others were really minor. Kayak and all these kind of things were really minor. So you could say like the two big ones head on head is Google and Trivago, while a few years ago, Trivago was bigger and Google is catching up. So if you look into the future, I would say that Google is taking over more market share there. And yeah, and Google is also in the end, it's a more comprehensive product when it also comes to leisure hotels, right? So because Google is playing a major role in the leisure market with Google AdWords, and yeah, and then obviously Google is starting to put the meta search functionality also in that area much stronger, and that way Google is catching market share as well.
Yeah, exactly. So, Ullrich, how is things going in Germany? Can you please give us a briefing for how those hotels are doing in Germany? How vaccination is going? Because you know, Germany is one of the biggest and key market for Turkey as well.
Yeah.
You know, if you have such a data, how are the search volumes from Germany to Turkey?
Yeah.
Do you have any data on that, or?
Well, the search volumes for Turkey itself we don't really have. That's because I mean Turkey is still not a very big market for us. We don't really have a vast majority of hotels, and we don't really I didn't really, let's say, elaborate on that. But the overall situation is that obviously we still have a lockdown in Germany, right? So hotels are closed. You're only allowed to travel on business. So within Germany, the only option is to travel by business. Vaccination rate is roughly at 20% currently. So we are vaccinating around 500 to 600,000 people a day, as far as I can remember. So the speed is picking up significantly. So we hopefully have at least the majority of the adults vaccinated by end of July. So that is good news. What you can see is depending on local regulations, like in Turkey, actually I'm not aware of how that works, but people are allowed to travel. So you're allowed to go on holiday, yeah, as long as the country you go to is opening up, and as long as there are certain, let's say, rules in place. Usually the biggest blocker is that whenever you travel back from a country, you have to go into quarantine. So if you go, let's say if you go on a 2-week holiday and you come back to Germany, you need to go on a 1 week or 5 to 10 days quarantine, which means you actually need to have 3-week holiday if you're not able to work in a home office. So, and then obviously you have a lot of costs around testing yourself, right? You need to have a test once you go there. You need to have 1 or 2 tests when you get back. And that easily counts up to the same amount of money you pay for testing than you pay for flights. So that is basically, again, a restriction for many people, specifically if you go for, let's say, a cheaper holiday, right? If you're having financially let's say the capabilities, I think people with money can make holiday, but people with little money and then they have bigger problems, obviously, in traveling.
Yeah, exactly. So, Ullrich, my last question would be, I'm sorry about that, we are short in time. My last question, how do you see the trend after July? When do you think it is back?
2 things. I think it very much happens to vaccinations again, right? And we need to look at things in a very local way. So you might have more people from UK coming to Turkey and Germans maybe at some point as well, right? So you always need to look at the vaccination level of when people can come, and then you also need to look at your own kind of corona situation in Turkey, obviously, on how that develops, because obviously if there's a major outbreak in Turkey, and obviously then governments will tell people not to go to a country. So this is just an overall trend. What we clearly see, nevertheless, coming back to our topic, to online demand, And that's a very interesting one, because we see whenever we have lockdowns lifted and whenever we see demand coming back, we see an extremely strong push into the online channels. And I always make a very simple, let's say, explanation. Tour operators are down, right? Tour operators are really struggling. So tour operator business is really down to a minimum. Group business and all these kind of things is down. So if you, let's say, if you have a hotel that has 100% occupancy and 1/3 tour operator, 1/3 group, and 1/3 online, so tour operator and group is on risk. But what we could see with our hotels is that the demand is still back, and the demand is really spiking up sometimes because people really want to travel. And this is what gives me hope that people want to travel. And if they want to travel, all of a sudden certain segments and channels are closed. So the demand through online channels is even going up. So it's even more important than before. Online will take an even bigger market share. So it's even more important to be available online, and then take the chance of obviously making sure that your website is getting a share of that. And another thing we saw with our clients was that clients who invested in online marketing, who invested in metasearch, were able to get a larger share of that online business, while clients who stopped doing online marketing lost market share to Booking.com and Expedia. So the interesting thing is it's a real game changer. And I think hotels can now really take the chance of taking business away from OTAs, I always say online is getting a bigger piece of a smaller pie, right? The overall pie is getting smaller because obviously, yes, we're going to have a financial crisis, less people potentially traveling, but of the segments relevant, online is becoming even bigger than before. And so it's even more important to be present, and it's even more important to make sure that, again, we should not make the mistakes of 10 years ago with the last financial crisis where Booking.com took over. So this time we need to be in the driving seat, and we need to make sure that we do it ourselves and that we get more business through our own website. And as I said, platforms like Google, Trivago, metasearch gives you an opportunity there, but you need to know how to do it, and you need to act. And if you don't act, someone else will do it for you, right?
Exactly. If you don't do it, someone else will do it for you.
Exactly.
Ullrich, thank you very much for being part of Hotel Linkage Summit. Again, as always, you really gave us a very, very unique speech. Thank you very much for that. And hopefully see you next year's face-to-face in our summit too. So thank you again.
Thank
Ullrich.
you. Yeah, and I hope to come next year to Istanbul again. Yeah.
We are really looking forward to have you here. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you. Ullrich çok önemli ve güzel bir konuşma yaptı bizim için. Söylediği bence manşetlik bir şey vardı. Ben bunu sizlerle burada tekrardan paylaşmak istiyorum. Daha 10 yıl önce yaşanan ekonomik krizde OTA'ler çok ciddi pay aldılar ve gerçekten sürücü koltuğuna geçtiler. Ama bu sefer aynı hatayı oteller yapmamalı. Mutlaka direkt kanallarına yatırım yapmalı. Ve artık şoför koltuğuna onlar geçmelerini de gerçekten çok önemli şeyler söyledi. Ullrich'e çok teşekkür ediyorum.
Hotel Linkage.